We're going to talk about just the storms of life today and how you try to find your rhythm in the storms because life hits you hard. And I'm going to start out with a quote that's not a biblical quote, but it's from one of the main philosophers, one of the wise minds of our time. There's a little snark there. And that is, it's not about how hard you can hit, but how hard of a hit you can take and keep on going. And that was from Rocky Balboa. Good philosopher, right? There's a lot of truth in that. Life will teach us and it will train us if we cooperate with it. And that is so key right there. So in Mark 6:48, we see the training element. And this is when they're in the middle of the sea and the storm is raging and Christ is walking on the water. And he says, seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, at about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea, and I highlighted this, and he intended to pass them by. Now, why he changed his mind is not stated in the scripture. We just know that he did, and then he calmed the storm. We all like that part. But his original intention was to keep on walking and let them keep on rowing and learn. He intended to let them continue struggling, because struggling, in our context anyway, is just another word for training. This is what we do. We train. If we're going to climb higher and get better and stronger and closer to God, it's going to get tougher and tougher in some ways, but that's what we do. That's what we enlisted for. We didn't enlist to be coddled and pampered and babied, and here you can see Christ wasn't going to baby him. His intention was to walk on by. Now maybe it's because they thought they saw a ghost and started crying out like a bunch of scared little kindergartners. I don't know why it changed his mind, but I do know what he had intended. So we're tough. We're really tough people. We're way tougher than we realize. I don't think I really emphasize that enough. So we're either coming out of a storm. Maybe you want to say you're in a storm, coming out of a storm, between storms, or you're entering a storm. Folks, that's life. That's the rhythm. That's the way it works. Now, I don't know where you're at exactly, and I know where we like to be. We like to be between the storms, don't we? Like, if I could just perpetuate that. The problem with perpetuating that is, number one, you can't, so that's life. But there's no training. There's a time to rest. There's a time to get your breath and recuperate. I have no problem with that. But that's not training. That's just resting so you can do some more training. So God's agenda is all training focused. That's what it's all about. And so we're going to get into training, and we're just going to keep saying to ourselves, this is all training. What's God trying to teach me? And we're going to keep rowing. We're going to keep rowing. And as we get older, there's just some training we can't avoid. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's just life. Now, what mentality am I going to approach it with? So let's start with, and we have several things here. So you're betrayed by friends sometimes. That's the way it works, right? Don't like that, but we're going to suffer. So Christ told us, he said, a disciple is not above his teacher or a slave above his master. It is enough for the disciple that he become like his teacher and the slave like his master. If they've called the head of the house Beelzebub, how much more will they malign the members of his household? There are going to be people attacking us, and they're going to come from different places, and it's not going to be pleasant. But if we follow in his footsteps, what should we expect? If we really walk in his footsteps, we should expect opposition because we are his student. And if they attacked our teacher, they will obviously attack us. If you're never being attacked, you might want to back off and ask what you're really practicing. In 1 Peter 5:8, that's where he tells us that the devil roams about like a lion seeking someone to devour. And again, if you don't feel like he's seeking to devour you, it may be that he already knows what team you're on and you just haven't figured it out yet. These things are going to happen. Satan will use anybody he can to trip up and mess up your spirituality. In Matthew 16:22, he was using Peter. So we read Peter took him aside. So Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke Jesus, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this shall never happen to you. But now Jesus turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You're not setting your mind on God's interest, but on man's. So don't be surprised. Don't be shocked when Satan somehow gets in there, squiggles around some way or another, and uses somebody you thought you could trust, somebody you thought was on your team, somebody that you thought you knew who you were dealing with, and all of a sudden, wham, they hit you upside the head with something. If he could get into Peter's head and use Peter against Jesus, then he can get into anybody I know's head and use them against me also. And so what you have to do is you have to say, I'm Christian. I'm going to keep rowing. This wasn't pleasant. This wasn't good. It hurt. I don't want you to dismiss any of that and think, that the pain means you're weak. It hurts. But we keep rowing. Sometimes training is just hard. I want you to expect challenges from your inner circle. This is where Matthew 10:34, Christ taught that it's going to come from within your family. He said, don't think that I came to bring peace on earth. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. I came to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Satan will use anybody he can, and there'll be good intention. Think about it. Peter really thought he was saying the right thing to Jesus when he took him aside. He didn't understand he was off course till Jesus rebuked him and got his attention and his focus back. So a lot of your trials are going to come from within. I mean, I get it. You don't like what's going on out in California and Hollywood. Of course we don't. We don't like that immorality. We don't like the immorality and the stuff that's going on in Washington. I get that. But think about it. Where are your really biggest challenges coming from? Is it really Washington? I know we don't like what's going on out there, but is it really Washington your biggest challenge? Or is it somebody a whole lot closer than Washington, extended family or something along that line? I think you get the idea. And so you get into the struggle because it's there. You're not going to get out of it. And you start to figure out, okay, it's all training. Wonder what God's trying to teach me here. And find meaning and purpose in it. I mean, if you're going to go through the pain, and you are, you might as well get some profit out of it somewhere along the way. I'm kind of thinking, okay, I can go through the pain and the struggle, and I can whine and cry and be a victim and moan about how unfair and unright it all is, and that's true. It is. Or I can go into the struggle and go, okay, this is unfair, this isn't right, and I am not going to play the victim card, and I'm not going to lay down and let Satan walk all over me. I know this will strengthen me and make me stronger if I will keep my focus on the goal. If I will just keep rowing, I will come out of this better. I ain't got it all figured out yet, but that is my intention. Don't be surprised when you get attacked. There's nothing new. In 2 Timothy 4:9, Demas loved the present world and deserted Paul. Paul thought he had a fellow worker. Paul thought he had a comrade there, and Demas thought, no, this is too tough. This is way more than I bargained for. And so he left. Life gets tough. People make bad choices. That's not right. That's not fair. That's reality. And the way we deal with it may very well determine whether we're successful in our spiritual journey or not. It's just part of the training. And God knew it was all coming. Christ is the Lamb slain from before the foundation of the world. That's profound, but that's another lesson. So we learn to keep our focus. We just keep our focus. I'm Christian. I'm going to walk the straight and narrow. I'm going to do what is right. I'm going to make God smile to the best of my ability. I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to overcome, because it's not so much the betrayal, but how we respond to it. And I think that's really interesting. So I know people, you know them too, I mean not specifically the same folks I know, who have dealt with some major betrayals in their family life, specifically in their marriage. And I'm talking about some things just way, way too ugly to even begin talking about. And as everything burned down and nothing but ashes remained, there are couples who have said, We got too much time invested in this just to walk away. We're going to rebuild. And they rebuilt. And they continued walking together and built a stronger marriage after than what they had before. Now, the betrayal was horrible. There's no way around it. They would have been totally right to say, I'm done, I'm out of here. But it's how we respond. We've had family betrayals. I think most of us share stories like that. And it's okay. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to respond to it? It's not right. It's not fair. It wasn't expected. It was unjust. All of those things are true. But I can't do anything with those things. But I can decide how I'm going to respond to it. And the best thing I know to tell you to do is keep rowing, guys. It's training. And God is bringing out some stuff. You know, I want to go through the crucible. I want to be put in the fire, Lord, so you can bring the dross out of me and I'll be the purest gold there is. But can we do it at room temperature? No, I'm sorry. You don't get to do that one at room temperature. In order to melt the gold, to bring the dross to the surface, I'm sorry. You got to go through the fire. And there's only one way to go through the fire, and that's to go through the fire. Now, it may be financial storms. It may not be the betrayal stuff. And, you know, these come on kind of swift sometimes when the dot-com bubble popped, when the real estate bubble popped. I forget which bubble's about to pop now, but, you know, there are people that thought they had the retirement set and they were really going to do good, and then they woke up a week later and found out, oh, I can't quit working, can I? You know, sometimes those things just hit you quick. Sometimes it's just kind of a slow moving storm that's always over your head, and you know, it's there. So you got to be careful and not get too caught up in the material aspect of life. Christ said, beware and be on your guard against every form of greed. I think that's kind of neat. I think that might be a lesson sometime. Every form of greed. You mean there's more than one? Well, Jesus indicated there was. For not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions. That's kind of neat. That's all. I got to add this. Of course, we mention it from time to time, but I heard a new statistic. So I've often said all of us are the top 10% of the world's wealth, and that is statistically correct. I heard one just this week that said, if you make $125,000 a year, you are the top 5% of the world's wealth. Wow. Let that one soak in a second. And that's like, woo. So we have crazy abundance. We're up here in the top 10%. I don't know what your family income is, but if it's $125,000 a year plus, you're top 5%. He says, yeah, don't get too excited about all that. Don't get distracted. Keep on rowing. This is about your spirituality. This is about getting closer to God. This is about seeking God. And fortunately, money's not a big part of that. If it was, we'd all be sunk already, wouldn't we? Paul wrote in 1 Timothy 6:9, continuing the same idea, godliness actually is a means of great gain when accompanied by contentment. For we brought nothing into the world, so we cannot take anything out of it either. If we have food and covering, with these we shall be content. I should have highlighted that. But those who want to get rich fall into temptation and snare, many foolish and harmful desires, and plunge men into ruin and destruction. Keep your priority. Ain't none of us against making a good living and living okay, as we, call our middle class lifestyle or wherever you class yourself. But folks, if we miss heaven, we just miss everything there is. The last thing I want to do is die a multi-millionaire just to go sit with a rich man in torment and we moan all the stuff we left behind and we don't have anymore. I'd rather die a pauper and go in through the pearly gates, find my white robe, join the crown, or however you envision heaven, and gather around the throne and sing praises for eternity. That'd be a whole lot better. You got to watch out for unexpected events, just the accidents of life. Just things, that you didn't plan on that happening, but it happened. This is what goes on in life. So Paul said, Philippians 4:11, not that I speak from want, for I've learned to be content in whatever circumstances I'm in. That's a tough one, but that's what we're learning to do. It's not easy, but it's all training. And I think some of the lessons are what I would call abstract. They're spiritual lessons. If it doesn't challenge you, if it isn't making you wrestle with it, then it's not going to change you. You have to step a step past your comfort zone. Your spiritual success will not be found in a comfort zone. Biblically, we call the comfort zone lukewarm. That would be Revelation 3, verse 15 and 16. That's what a comfort zone is. You don't want that. You want something that pushes you a little bit. Now, we don't want to push you too much, because if we do it too much at one time, you're not going to be able to handle it. But if we keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing at a good, steady pace, it's amazing what you can do, how far you can grow, and all the things. So look at what's happening and then relax a little bit. I just love this one. We've used it quite a bit lately. You have survived everything life has thrown at you to this very minute. Now, the reason I know that is we haven't done your funeral yet. So I know you've survived it. I want you to think a moment about everything life has done to you. Let's just go back to when you were 15, 16. I don't know. Pick a date. And start looking at the abuses, the betrayals, the struggles, the injustices. I mean, it's all there. We've all got a whole litany of it we could do, you know. We can go all the way back to that time my sister broke the lamp and I got the spanking because she lied about it. You know, I mean, just start stacking them up. Every single thing, no matter how ugly or nasty or violent or cruel it was to you, you have survived it. That's pretty cool. I don't know how to explain how tough you are other than what I just did. You are way tougher than you ever thought you could be. Now, let me say, I didn't say it was fun. And I didn't say it was a party. I didn't say, it was like, oh, this is so cool. No. But you did survive it. Had nothing taken you out yet. Paradox. The training is always incomplete. This is a little tough for us because we're goal-oriented, but it's always incomplete this side of the tombstone. Paul said in Philippians 3:13, I do not regard myself as having laid hold of it yet. But one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching for what's ahead or forward, I press on to the goal for the prize, the upward call of Christ in Christ Jesus. So you got to keep looking ahead, because what you're really looking for isn't here. Everything here almost, with the exception of a little spirituality, is fool's gold. That's all it is. Let me try it this way. If you can't take it with you into heaven, it's fool's gold. If you can't lay it up as a treasure in heaven, it's fool's gold. Don't get too focused on the fool's gold. Keep your eye on the real gold that is in heaven waiting you. Forget what's behind you, and by that we don't mean go brain dead. Just no self-pity. No, it wasn't right. No, it wasn't fair. Yes, you are allowed a time of grief when the bigger offenses are new. So let me give you an easy example. The rule of thumb is when you lose a loved one, I'm talking about a mate, it's not abnormal to have a grieving period of anywhere from 12 to 18 months. Some people would say 12 to 24 months. And yet this is a little oddity, because even after the 24 months, you're always going to miss the one you love. There's always going to be an empty place there. It's, I don't even like to say it this way, but it's kind of an adjustment phase. It's kind of like you lost your right arm and now you're learning to live without it. But it's okay to go through grief for a time. But there is a time where it no longer becomes the healthy growing process, and it becomes self-pity and for me and the pity party. And I can't give you specific time frames. I'm sorry, they don't exist. Some people go through major things a little quicker, other people a little longer. But this is part of recovery. And I will say this. I'm going to get in trouble here a little bit, but based on medical people I've talked with, I do not recommend drugs that stop the grieving process because it is a process God created. And when my wife passes before me, if she does, I need to grieve. And I need to do that for however long it takes me to go through the process. If I run down to Dr. Romero and get a prescription and stop it at week 1, I'm never getting through it. I can't get through it. I can only get through it by going through it, feeling the pain, feeling the hurt, feeling the emptiness, feeling the loneliness. If you numb it, I mean, hit the bottle, get drunk all the time. You're not going to go through it. Get a prescription so it's legal. You're not going through it. We have to go through the pain. But that's the key. You get through it. And yes, it hurts and it leaves a scar. And a scar is a sign that it healed. But it's still got a scar. And we keep moving on. So you learn. And it's hard. And some of these are really hard. And you keep rowing. And you keep rowing. And you just keep rowing. Because I haven't heard yet, well done, thou good and faithful servant, enter into your master's rest. That's when we get to keep rowing. Revelation 14:13, blessed are those who die in the Lord, that they may rest from their labors. I ain't dead yet. I may look like I'm getting close. Sometimes the grandkids remind me of that, but I'm not there yet. And so the question is, can we really handle the tough truths of this lesson? I mean, you can sit in a pew and go, yeah, that's okay, preacher, but I don't know if you really get it. No, this is good. So Psalms 119:71, David writes, it is good for me that I was afflicted, that I may learn your statutes. There is no better time to learn the truth of God's word than when we are literally going through something of life. I mean, we sit in our Bible classes, and this is all good, and we talk about them in theory, and we talk about, how they would apply to life, and it's abstract, it's constructive, but never do you learn it like you learn it when you're going through it yourself. And so I got to mention Sister Maxine Wallace for just a moment, because she was, being a preacher's wife for so long. Sarah Nolan had done many, many funerals and sat with many, many grieved people. And she said, I thought I knew what it would be like to lose a loved one. She said, I didn't. Not until Nolan passed away. And she said it felt like somebody reached into my chest and ripped my heart out. And so it's in the experience that you really learn the depth of the lesson. Now, I don't want to take the abstract away from you, but I want to warn us all that abstract is not complete preparation. We're not going to get there. We got to go through the struggling. That's going to be our crucible. That's where it's going to bring the dross out. So we're going to cooperate with it. We're going to work with it. God knew evil was coming and knew it would be here, and he knew he could use it. Now, can I cooperate with him? So we don't always see it. I get that. I mean, sometimes you go, okay, preacher, tell me why this is going to be good. Well, I don't have all the answers, but I know that I am going to heaven, and I'm keeping my eye on the one who has the answers. And, we used to sing the song, further along, we'll know all about it. Further along, we'll understand why. I might not get it yet, but I believe as I get older, I understand more and more. And I believe that progress continues. When I step on the other side of the tombstone, I'll understand more and more still. So it's not the struggle so much that defines you, it's how you respond to it. So I know people who have been beat up by life hard. And they said, I'm not going to let this get me. I'm not going down that ugly, dark road of alcoholism or drug abuse or depression, self-rejection, and all this stuff. And I know people have been beat up hard, and they went down the dark road. Same situation, just different responses. We choose how we respond. I'm not saying it's easy. I don't have all the answers, but I know this. We keep rowing. We keep rowing. Changing health comes at us. The only way to stop that is if one other man wants to die. It's just a question of how's my health going to fail? I know it's going to, and I know yours is going to. It's just like, when's it going to happen? And in the process, while we don't know when it's going to happen, we pray for folks. And praying for health is okay. That's why I use this verse, 3 John 2. I pray that in all respects you may prosper, be in good health, just as your soul prospers. So when you know somebody's struggling or you're struggling, you pray for good health. But please understand, God cannot give you good, great health perpetually. You're going to die. That's what we do. I don't mean to make light of it. I don't want to, minimize anybody's pain, but it's what we do. And part of our training is preparing for that time of transition, our own and with those who go on before us. Spiritual training and our physical health, they work together sometimes, don't always understand it. But Paul said, because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations that he had seen, to keep him from getting too proud, exalting himself, God gave him a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment him, to keep him from exalting himself. Now, I don't know what his thorn in the flesh was. I know what the speculation is. We won't go into it there. You pick yours. I know it was a thorn in the flesh. And he didn't like it. I know that from the broader text there. But you just keep rowing. You just keep going forward. And you just keep moving on down the spiritual path. Then we have this disappointments. You have canceled plans. There's unmet expectations. You got your dreams. Oh, man, I'm going to do this and that, and it never works out. That's just part of life, part of the training. How do you deal with failure? Because how you deal with failure is just as important as how you deal with success. That's a hard lesson right there, but it's really true. So Paul knew it. He said, I wanted to come to you more than once, yet Satan hindered us. 1 Thessalonians 2:18. So when you get a disappointment, it's not the end. It's just a different path. Okay, I got to take a detour. Got to go another way. Because our pilgrimage is not about our agenda, about God's. He's the one in charge, taking care of everything. This is the toughest one we've already hit on a little bit. I don't know of anything rougher than this, at least in my mind. I'm sure theoretically we could come up with something that's worse than losing a loved one. But no one's an exception. The Bible heroes, they had to deal with the loss of loved ones. Job lost everything, all his kids, all his property. It was all taken away from him. He went through a really hard, difficult time. But he kept rowing. By the time you get to the end of it, he comes out in a better place. David lost his son. That was that whole Bathsheba incident. He said, I can't bring him back, but I'll go to him. You just keep rowing. And in these times, maybe the best advice I can give you is not even one day at a time. Sometimes it's just 1 hour. Let me just get through the next hour. Let me get through the next 15 minutes. It just depends on so many little factors there. Life's tough. It is really tough. So let's go back to Rocky Balboa and let's call this a lesson. Not about how hard you can hit, but how hard of a hit can you take and keep going. That's the one that really matters. So he saw them straining at the oars. He knew they were struggling. It was his intention to pass by and let them keep struggling. There were some lessons that he thought they could learn there. So God sees us struggling. He knows what we're going through. He's on our side. But we still have some lessons to learn. We need to keep rowing. And what I'm going to tell you to do is in that time, just pray. Pray. What can I be learning here? It's all training. What should I be figuring out? How can I use this? Make it as positive as you can. I don't mean in a happy sense. I mean in a constructive training sense. And just keep rowing, and keep rowing. And if you'll refuse to stop rowing, I'm confident that one of these days we'll stand together upon the golden street inside the pearly gate, high five one another, and understand some things we don't have a clue about yet. So, are you rowing? Are you determined? Keep on rowing? If so, stay the course. That's where I want you to be. If you feel like giving up, need to reconsider. Need a little bit of counsel? Find somebody you feel comfortable talking to. We've got 3 elders, we've got deacons, we've got just some good old members that give you some good counsel. Find it somewhere. And always go back to the Word. If you're subject to our public invitation, let us help you while together we stand and sing.